Okay, let's get this webinar started. Uh, Next slide, please. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm David, co-founder and CEO of Clarity. Joining me today on the panel are Julian and David from RAC, Royal Automobile Club from Western Australia, and Martin from Ramboll. We are very excited to share more about the RAC Air Health Monitor, one of Australia's largest and most advanced air sensor network. Next slide, please. RAC Air Health Monitor is a great example of what the next generation of air monitors can be. We at Clarity call it the Air Quality Management 2.0. This innovative network combines state-of-the-art technology, the stakeholder engagements, and data analysis to elevate air quality management to the next level. We have prepared a short video to illustrate this. Let's take a look.
The WHO, the World Health Organization, latest results suggest that about 7 million people per year die from air pollution around the world.
It is estimated air pollution contributed to more than 3,200 Australian deaths in 2018. That's a 26% increase from 2015.
It's sometimes called the invisible killers. There's no safe level of air pollution.
We want cleaner and healthier air into the future, and we really need to understand what is happening right now, because the decisions we make today will have an impact for tomorrow.
Since 1905, RAC has been driving change in the local community. We're not just an insurance company or a roadside assistance company or a provider of parks and resorts. In fact, we're all about making life better in Western Australia for Western Australians and for our members.
Clarity is funded with a mission to empower the world to reduce air pollution by establishing a dense air quality monitoring network and combining that with the state-of-the-art modeling. Clarity Notes is a solar-powered built-in cellular connectivity air quality sensor that measures particulate matter and the nitrous dioxides. Someone can, without any training, take it out of the box and deploy on a pole within 10 minutes. That's enabled a monitoring of air quality like never before.
Despite being a local organisation, we're able to partner with global organisations like Clarity. This means we can bring world-leading technology and insights to our local community.
RAC was looking for a company that was able to helping the organization to monitoring the airs at affordable yet accurate way, and I think that's where we find the perfect mix with each other.
The RAC Air Health Monitor works from Perth to Peel. That's over 9,730 kilometres squared in coverage.
The network of air sensors formed in partnership with Clarity enables us to provide better information and education to our members, and takes us to the global stage with cities like Los Angeles and London in providing real-time information for people to make decisions about their own transport choices.
Sensing as a service is turnkey solutions that Clarity provides to our clients by combining the state-of-the-art hardware, software, and expert supports to empower our clients with accurate and reliable data. With the Clarity's monitors, you will be able to see a very localized air pollution levels right next to your doorstep.
The information we get from the Clarity sensors and the air health monitoring really has helped us shape a lot of what we're doing under our sustainability pillar. It helps us understand our natural environment, which then helps us to protect and enhance it for future generations and current generations.
Perth is a growing city. It's around 150 kilometres long, 50 kilometres wide. It's a beautiful city. So the clean blue skies of Perth, we want to keep that into the future.
You do see a pocket of areas in the cities that does exceed the WHO's standards around PM2.5 and NO2 thresholds, being a bushfire coming from the regions or the vehicle emissions in the rush hours.
Air pollution doesn't affect everyone evenly. There's quite a bit of data now showing that mums breathing in things like particulate matter and other air pollutants can directly obviously affect their health, but can also affect the unborn baby, meaning they might be born premature, they might be born small for their gestational age, and those things can lead to lifelong problems. Having a larger network of sensors where we have a better resolution of where air pollution is worse or better would be beneficial in allowing us to change behaviours or educate people more or do all sorts of things to improve the health of those people.
We would love to see more partnership like this between RAC and the Clarity, in which the corporates can really step up and taking charge of that social initiative towards a cleaner future.
We're going to continue to inform the community. We're going to raise awareness around air quality in our state. We're going to work with the state and federal governments and local governments to really make better choices about the infrastructure they're investing in, but also their policies for the future as well, around fuel quality standards and emission standards in our state, and also obviously the community every day. And we want them to make informed choices about the transport they're going to use in the future.
At RAC, we're all about leading change for the better, and what could be more important than having cleaner air to breathe for us and the future generations of Western Australians.
Okay, it's always weird to see yourself talk on a video. Okay, so next slides, please. So today in this webinar, we will take our time to dive into a few building blocks. That's what makes RAC Air Health Monitor unique: the community outreach, the government engagement, the technology behind the network, and the data-driven insights. At the core of the ever-successful air quality monitoring efforts are community outreach and government engagement. These form the foundation of the network and shape our project approach. I will now hand over to Julian from RAC to tell you more about how RAC Air Health Monitor is approaching these two elements.
Thanks, David. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining this webinar wherever you are in the world. It's a pleasure to have you, and looking forward to showcasing the RAC Air Health Monitor to you all. So with over 1.2 million members, as you've seen, RAC is a Western Australian purpose-led member organisation offering a range of products and services. We've been putting our members and community interests first, and acting, influencing, advocating positive change for 118 years. If you can just do the next slide as well, please. Early club members installed the state's first signposts and produced its first roadmaps. And by the 1920s, we're campaigning to preserve the giant karri trees in the southwest of Western Australia. In more recent times, and aligned to our sustainability efforts, in 2012, RAC introduced the Less Emissions Mission, rewarding members with low emission vehicles, and in 2015, built the first electric charging highway of its kind, with the RAC Electric Highway providing charging options for EV owners along the southwest in Australia. With a heritage built by members, RAC continues its journey to be the driving force for a better WA. This is our purpose, our why, and this is enacted through our vision for a safer, sustainable and connected future for Western Australians. We're committed to continuing to improve our services and experiences for our members and to champion change that will lead to our vision for a better WA. Next slide. So launched in 2020 and sitting at our overall strategy for the organisation, our social impact framework guides and helps us measure and report on our progress to 2030. Our Vision 2030 and states provides a strategic direction around where we want to get for each of our three impact areas, which are safe, sustainable and connected. The social metric impact metric helps us understand, react and respond to what's happening in the changing external environment and track progress around the things we're trying to impact. This includes a series of indicators, measures and targets reflecting the following factors in WA. We develop and deliver a range of social and community impact activities to help make our vision a reality. Next slide. So a safe, sustainable, connected future. We have set our desired end stage, or what we aspire for the future to look and feel like. So safety and mobility is vital to the well-being of Western Australians. Think safer roads, speeds, vehicles and people to save lives and reduce serious injuries. And related to today's topic, sustainable mobility meets the social and environmental and economic needs of current and future generations. Think low emission vehicles and initiatives for cleaner, healthier air, fewer cars overall, and more low and zero emission vehicles. It means cleaner air, greener towns and cities, and a healthier WA. And connected mobility supports vibrant and livable communities. Think well-planned communities and transport that connects people and places together. Next slide, please. So the transport emissions challenge. Here, it was estimated that in 2018, air pollution contributed to over 3,000 Australian deaths. In WA, in 2020, road transport made up 13% of WCO2 emissions. Road transport contributed 74% of transport emissions, with 47% of road transport emissions coming from cars alone. Between 1990 and 2020, the percentage increase in CO2 emissions from road transport in WA was almost double that of Australia's. Australia's fuel quality is ranked 89th in the world, down from 85th in 2020. And with progress being made, we need to tackle vehicle emissions, so mandatory CO2 emission standards and stricter noxious emission standards for new light vehicles. Next slide. So key actions we needed to take. So we need to collect, monitor and use data, but also present it in a format that can be understood by the community and our members. We need to set low and zero emission vehicle targets. We need to improve emission standards for vehicles, scale up financial incentives and subsidies, scale up investment in charging infrastructure, and prepare the network for uptake. Importantly, provide better access to trusted consumer information, improve planning of our communities so we take less private vehicle trips and more active and public transport, and invest in initiatives that encourage active and public transport use. Next slide. RAC found that there was actually a lack of availability of air quality and emissions monitoring in Australia that was easy for members in the community to interpret and understand. Given the projected increases in emissions and the impact on our health, access to monitoring and information is vital for assessing and implementing change. Due to this, the RAC Air Health Monitor was formed. On the 9th of November 2022, RAC actually launched the Air Health Monitor at the RAC President's Function, attended by 300 government and industry representatives. RAC have partnered with Clarity Movement using their world-leading air sensing technology, measuring particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. In addition to sensor technology, using a highly advanced model developed by global engineering firm Ramboll, the monitor blends air quality data from the network of sensors with other sources, including data from traffic monitoring services, meteorology, and industrial activity. Joining global cities like Paris, London, and Los Angeles, the Air Health Monitor is an extensive sensor network which collects accurate air quality data and presents it to the community in near real-time heat map. The Air Health Monitor is used to engage and educate the community about pollutants harmful to our health and the environment and encourage positive action to reduce vehicle emissions. So our key objectives include enabling RAC to collect current information about air quality to support more informed advocacy with all levels of government on appropriate action and to reduce air pollution, particularly emissions from vehicles, improving air quality in Western Australia. We want to share real-time data and enable campaigns to engage, educate and inspire members, including how they could contribute towards improving air quality, and highlight to members when air quality presents health concerns, particularly for sensitive receptors in sensitive receptor locations to help manage adverse impacts. The Air Health Monitor is integrated into the RAC website and tracks air pollution across the Perth metropolitan and Peel region. Next slide, please. So fully funded by the RAC has partnered with government, industry and the education sector to install sensors at strategic locations based on a criterion, including proximity to highways and main roads, pedestrianised areas, industrial density and areas with high vehicle idling. As a sensor host, stakeholders can log in with unique account credentials to access the data collected through the Clarity dashboard to visualise, analyse and download data from their own sensors. By working with a wide range of stakeholders together to understand Perth's air current air quality, we can then identify, initiate and support the important changes we need to make to ensure our air remains healthy for all of us, both now and into the future. Now, I am going to touch on some of our stakeholder engagement initiatives. This is something David was very keen for me to showcase, and stakeholder engagement is critical and will be a focus point for the upcoming year as we progress from key network matters. So behaviour change and awareness initiatives underpin the success of this project, and I'll cover off some of the highlights that supports the Air Health Monitor objectives. So firstly, with schools. According to a 2021 WA State Government report, the national rate of walking and riding to school here has dropped from 75% to 25% over the past 40 years. And in the Perth metropolitan area, it is at 20%. Travel to school counts for more than 18% of morning peak car trips in Perth. This equates to 250,000 car trips and over 1 million vehicle kilometres travelled by car each day. In addition to the health costs associated with physical inactivity, for example, the report highlights that car travel to school in the Perth metro area is the estimated cost to the economy, which is over $186 million annually. Encouraging behaviour change will deliver many benefits. Our education team continues to do a fantastic job in schools with a series of incursion and excursion opportunities relating to mainly road safety and sustainability. Launched to more than 900 primary schools, the Healthier Air Education program is a 3-part online series covering a range of topics, including understanding air pollution and where it comes from, what impact emissions have on air quality, and the role everyone can play in promoting healthier air. This is available on the RAC website, which you can all locate as well. In addition to this, last year, the RAC Imagine program Futures Challenge launched, which is a project-based learning challenge utilising student-centred teaching framework to develop students' knowledge or skills through projects rather than through teacher-led instruction. During the opening of the RAC Imagine program Futures Challenge, students were introduced to the challenge they'll be working on over the course of the term and started building the foundations of their idea. Throughout the day, students participated in breakout workshops and activities to explore and develop their ideas. This also included keynote speakers and panel discussions led by industry mentors and RAC team members. So once this day was wrapped up, students returned to their schools to work on ideas over the course of the term. This also included 7 weekly masterclasses after school where students continued to develop their ideas and gain insights from industry experts. Ideas and final project submissions were judged, and students were invited back for an in-person pitch and award ceremony with their parents, teachers, and industry partners. So the Eco Warriors team were the winners, and their vision for the future of transport right here in WA was a sustainable and multi-use transport hub which links key cities including Perth, Fremantle, and Mandurah. Powered by wind turbines, hydroelectricity, and kinetic energy tiles, their transport hub named The Hive would play host to the fleet of their future, which included a cable car and self-driving electric scooters. RAC also provided an opportunity for members to experience electric vehicles through EV for a Week trial. From the end of 2022 to mid last year, the EV for a Week trial gave 50 RAC members the opportunity to trial 100% electric Polestar 2 over a week and experience EV ownership firsthand. We selected a diverse mix of members from across the state through our Voice of Member panel. This trial really allowed our members to inform us of the unique challenges that our state faces as we transition to a more environmentally sustainable future, and I guess identify what West Australians need to improve EV uptake by enabling members to integrate an EV into their everyday life. The pre and post trial surveys allow us to track any changes in the participant knowledge, attitudes, and behaviours towards EVs. While most participants finished the trial with positive sentiments towards EVs, there were some who became EV skeptics, which was mainly connected to participant age and I guess access to the available charging infrastructure right here in Perth. Our community education team have developed e-scooter essentials and RAC bikes basic programs which is aimed to provide members of the community hands-on training while encouraging increasing clean mobility use as an active transport option. This program also encourages participants to replace at least one motor vehicle trip each week, aiming to help reduce traffic on our roads and the harmful effects of vehicle emissions. Now, the one I was quite pleased about was the RAC Air Health Stakeholder Series, which kicked off in September last year, and we had special guests David Liu, CEO of Clarity Movement Co, and Andrew Grieve, Senior Air Quality Analyst from Imperial College London. This session provided our sensor hosts a behind-the-scenes overview of the air quality network that powers the RAC Air Health Monitor, and how community partnerships have really driven the success of an air quality network in London through the Breathe London network, which you can find out more information obviously on the Breathe London page, but also on the Clarity page. We're one of Clarity's clients, which I highly recommend having a look at. This session helped kickstart the engagement with our host to inspire and also aspire to future initiatives right here in WA. And we're really looking forward to engaging with our sensor host to take, I guess, to the next level. Next slide, please. So now some key highlights I just want to share since the project launched. We've completed independent reviews conducted by air pollution and health experts from Curtin University School of Population Health. This was done through the Planning and Transport Research Centre, and this was really an opportunity to provide us an independent review of the RAC Health Monitor workings, but also to review and validate everything we're doing behind the scenes. Supported and featured in the International Automobile Federation, known as FIA. We're in the white paper, which was called FIA Accelerating a Just Transition, a Motorsports and Mobility Perspective, which highlighted the environmental initiatives of the FIA and its members in the field of motorsport and mobility. And this was actually presented at COP28 in 2023. The development of the RAC Air Quality Index, which we've done to provide a more accurate and comprehensive system for measuring and reporting air quality, and better alignment with international and local standards. You've seen the video with stakeholders, which was developed, and you've already seen that, so I won't recommend you viewing that again unless you thought it was really good. We were the winner of the 2023 Clean Air Society of Australia, New Zealand, WA Branch Clean Air Achievement Award. But most importantly, the partnerships and relationships were built with stakeholders at all levels, locally and internationally, which has made this initiative possible. So in closing from me, before I hand over to David Broadhag, technical lead here at RAC, air quality is a shared responsibility, and it's also a global responsibility, and collaborating on this particular initiative is a step towards reducing harmful emissions, in particular vehicle emissions, which is our focus for a more sustainable future for generations of Western Australians. So I'll now pass you on to David Broadhag, and apologies, I did forget to say click next slide. But yeah, David Broadhag will now take over to provide a deeper insight into the back end of the RAC Air Health Monitor. Thanks, David.
Okay, so yeah, thanks, Julian, to talk about the community outreach and government engagement. It's so inspiring to see the RAC active engagement with the diverse stakeholders to drive positive impact. Now let's really dive into the technology behind the RAC Air Health Monitors. So on the hardware side, Clarity is proud to be the suppliers of the air sensors services. In partnership with RAC, we have already deployed 200 Clarity Node S sensors and 30 wind ADA modules in the network, with plans to add 10 additional black carbon monitors very soon. The building block of the network is the Node S, a self-powered air sensor platform with built-in global cellular connectivity. The Node S can also serve as a hub for ADA modules, allowing our clients to address more complex questions. Next slide, please. To explain how this solution specifically serve the RAC Air Health Monitors. I will now finally hand over to David Bohek from the RAC to really tell you more.
So thanks, David. Hi, everyone. So the traditional way of measuring air quality is through reference graded stations. So these stations look like the units you can see on the left of this slide. And we installed one of those at our head office in West Perth. So these stations are gold star devices because they are super reliable, precise, accurate. However, they also have some cons, like, for example, their price to purchase and maintain, their size because they are pretty big, and also they are needing existing infrastructure to get power and also to send data. So because of their price, you are limited in the number of units you can deploy. And because of their size and needing infrastructure, you can also be limited in where you can really install them on site. So using those reference graded station only in your network is all good, and it gives you a very good representation of what the air quality is at a regional level. However, you won't be able to have a kind of neighborhood granularity, meaning that there are lots of areas and scenarios you won't be able to measure. And if you cannot measure something, basically you cannot fix it. So that's why we decided to combine reference graded stations with low-cost sensors to be able to deploy much more devices. And for this, we selected the Clarity Node S, like the one you can see on the top of the slide and the one David just showed you on the previous slide. Sorry. So the reason why we chose this solution is because they have lots of advantages. They are small, they are light, they are self-powered through a solar panel, and they embed mobile connectivity. So they are basically removing all barriers for quick and easy installation. And as a consequence, it only requires something like 5 minutes to be installed, but anywhere you want. So that allowed us to have a network of 200 sensors that you can see on the picture in the middle of the slide. So in addition to this, and because we really wanted to engage the community as much as possible, we thought we could not just tell people what the air quality is several kilometers away from where they are, because it's where the closest sensor from their position is. Instead, we really wanted to be able to tell them what the air quality is, where they live, where they go to work, where their kids are going to school. So that's why we decided to work with Ramboll and use their share model to basically fill the gaps between all the sensors. And it's thanks to their solution that we can now share with our community an air quality map as the one you can see on the right of this slide. So this map is refreshed every hour and is publicly available through any device using a web browser. So it gives an almost real-time access to air quality information to our community. So this makes it an excellent engaging tool, but I won't tell you too much about it because Martin from Ramboll will give you further information about this solution in a few minutes. So next slide, please. The importance of calibration, because when you use low-cost sensors in your network, you really need to have a thorough calibration and QA/QC process in place to maximize their performances. So that's why when we receive a new sensor, we don't deploy it straight away. We first collocate it with our reference graded station for a duration of at least 6 weeks. And this is illustrated through the photo on the right, where you can see on the left the reference graded station, and on the right, all the node S being collocated for calibration purposes. Those 6 weeks allow Clarity to define a calibration profile, which will be applied to all sensors. And it's only once we're happy with the performances of each sensor that we start to deploy them on site. What we also implemented is a QA/QC process, which allows us to ensure that the good performances of the sensor remain consistent across the whole project lifecycle. And actually, we were right to do so because we noticed that due to our extreme temperatures here in Perth during the summer season, our sensors calibrated in winter were not performing great in summer and vice versa. So that's why we decided to recalibrate our entire network to be able to manage all seasonality. And the chart on the bottom left is a good representation of this, where you can see the red line showing the monthly error mean of a sensor calibrated in winter. So as you can see, it was performing well in August, September at the end of the calibration process, which is our winter season. And then the performances started to decrease going towards our summer, which is December, Jan. And then it went back to normal, going back to our winter season with lower temperature and more humidity. The bluish greenish line is the monthly error mean, so the exact same thing, but after we recalibrated our entire network. And as you can see now, the good performances, they remain consistent across all months and seasons. So basically, the combination of having the reference graded station, the Clarity Node S, the thorough calibration and QA/QC process, basically allowed us to have an accurate, but also flexible and scalable air quality monitoring network. Next slide, please. So we also received a couple of new modules that I'll present you in the next couple of slides. So the first one is a wind module, which can measure ambient temperature, relative humidity, and wind speed and direction. So it's providing a better insight into where the air pollution is coming from and where it is heading towards. And in addition to this, analyzing meteorological data with air quality data can also help identify, very difficult word to pronounce, identifying weather patterns and factors that could influence pollution levels. So what I really like about this solution as well is similarly to a Clarity Node S, it's like super easy to install. You need just 2 cable ties. So you install it on a pole, you plug it directly to the Clarity Node S, and magically it gets power and start to send data to the Clarity dashboard. And once in the Clarity dashboard, you can start to view, download, and analyze the data as shown on the right of this slide. Next slide, please. So we also installed our first black carbon module this month, and 9 additional ones should arrive in the next weeks. So for those who don't know, black carbon is a particulate matter resulting from the incomplete combustion of fossil fuel and biomass. So it's a major contributor to air pollution and has significant effect on both the human health and the environment. What we are expecting from this module is so 3 things. First one is to evaluate black carbon concentration level in Perth. 2 is currently there's no regulation in Australia for black carbon. So the outcomes of our study could potentially lead us to advocate on this matter. And last but not least, if we identify that we have a black carbon issue in Perth, this module will allow us to know its source. Like, is it coming from traffic emission? Is it coming from biomass? And that will help us to diagnose the problem. And so to find what the best solutions to fix it could be. Next slide, please. So this slide is my last one for today. So now that we have collected a couple of years of data, we are starting a new phase of our project, which is analyzing the data and drafting our first reports. So we are working on 2 internal reports and 2 public reports. In terms of internal reports, the first one is purely technical and allows our team to be more efficient and proactive in the maintenance of our network. As an example, it allows us to have 95% of our sites with uptimes greater than 95%. The second internal reports aim to support our public policy team to advocate and influence for taking actions for better and cleaner air in WA, Western Australia. Regarding our public reports, they will have, so similarly to the internal ones, we'll have one dedicated to the technical aspect of this project and one dedicated to our first data insights. They should both be published and available to all in the coming month, so please stay tuned on this matter. And sorry, because I think we are slightly over time, so I'm going to stop now, but please don't hesitate to ask me as many questions as you want at the end of the presentation. So David, back to you.
Thank you so much, David. I honestly couldn't talk about our solution better than you. So really appreciate it. Well, while Clarity solution form a crucial part of the network, as Julia mentions, a very important part of RAC Health Monitor is be able to build an intuitive way to communicate the information we are gathering to the public and to the stakeholders. And that's where the Share coming in. Share is a product developed by Ramboll, a global engineering firm, and they were chosen to fulfill these needs. I will now pass to Martin to tell you more about it.
Thanks, David. As we've heard today, air quality monitors provide valuable data to individuals, communities, and organisations and help us understand the impact of pollution on our health and the environment. While air quality monitors are invaluable tools for understanding pollution levels, they're typically deployed in discrete locations, sometimes with limited spatial coverage, meaning that air quality data might not be available or representative for a lot of areas. As a result, the data collected might not provide insights into the air quality across an entire area, nor about the specific sources of pollution. In this regard, Ramboll developed a platform that we call Share that merges monitoring data with modelling and data analysis to present spatial, temporal, and source impacts from air pollution, both in real time and historically. Next slide, please. Share was designed by Ramboll to leverage sensor technology and data analysis to monitor, analyse, and predict air quality conditions across a nominated domain. Its end use is to provide real-time and historical data to stakeholders that can enable them to make informed decisions and take measures to mitigate the effects of air pollution. Apart from in Perth, we've implemented Share in a number of locations globally, including for government and community groups in the United States and in Asia. The model isn't one size fits all, and various configurations have been implemented in different locations. The configuration of Share often depends on data, local data availability, budgetary restrictions, computational resource restrictions, and what it is the client is hoping to achieve by using the model. Next slide, please. By default, Share uses the CAMX photochemistry model, which is what we've used in Perth. However, other models have also been used in other implementations of Share globally. As the model is real-time, the meteorological processing, ingestion of the required data processing and modelling all have to occur within the hour to allow for the process to occur in time and be uploaded to the site. Perth is a very long city. It's approximately 100 kilometres long, and so this stretches the computational capacity of Share. And this informed some of the decisions that we made regarding the configurations that we used, including grid size and some of the chemistry that was used within CAMX. Next slide, please. Share in Perth also incorporates live traffic congestion data and estimates of industrial emissions to blend the model output with sensor data for the best understanding of pollution exposures at from localized through to regional scales. The emissions information for the traffic in the RAC Health Monitor are based on the use of real-time traffic data obtained from an API. This is used in conjunction with emissions factors that we developed from the COPIT mobile emissions inventory and assumptions around traffic composition based on historical Australian Bureau of Statistics and main roads data. Analysis of the initial modelling predictions when we first implemented the model against the monitored data indicated that the model was underestimating concentrations of NO2, and so over time adjustments have been made to the emissions estimates. Investigations into the underestimation of predictions initially indicated that it was likely associated with assumptions around traffic composition, as emissions of NOx from heavy vehicles and older vehicles, when compared against modern vehicles, can at times be orders of magnitude larger than those from the newer vehicles. The model is sensitive to small changes in the assumptions of the compositions of the vehicle types, and so work continues to occur in updating the model to provide better correlation between the monitored and the modelled values. Next slide, please. The other source of aggregated emissions is from industrial emissions, which we took from the National Pollutant Inventory in Australia. The estimates of emissions parameters were based on standard nomenclature for air pollution or SNAP categories. Like all models, the model has some sensitivity to the characterisation of the emission sources, and careful consideration was given for sources distributed over large areas. There has been some adjustments to some sources throughout the course of the project to match the monitored data. We didn't include any other emissions inventory sources. Some of the data sets from the Department of Water and Environmental Regulations 2012 Perth emissions inventory were kindly supplied by DEWA, and consideration was given to using them. However, based on conversations with DEWA, the decision was made that they weren't suitable to be included due to their age, but other potential inventory sources that could be included in future iterations if the data becomes available include light industrial sources, commercial sources, residential sources, shipping, aircraft, residential wood burning, and potentially other biogenic sources such as wildfires and wind erosion. Originally, boundary conditions were implemented from outside of the modelling region, were derived from using NCAR and WACM data sets, which provide global estimates of concentrations based on a number of sources globally. However, the low resolution of these data sets, which approximately 1 degree by 1 degree, meant that there were occasions where emissions from bushfires that were occurring south of the city were being predicted to be advected into the model, and that wasn't really being reflected by the monitors, causing some issues, particularly in the presentation of the data. So we adjusted our methodology to remove those as boundary conditions, and we determine our boundary conditions using the monitors now. Whilst the monitoring data does a lot in resolving some of the issues around the emissions factors, additional work in further enhancing the emissions inventory, including addition of source parameters, would be a benefit both in terms of model performance and understanding impacts from various sources. Next slide, please. Once all of the data sources are aggregated and the modelling is complete, the monitoring results are integrated into the model for the final output for each hour. The performance of the model works when the initial guess from the model is closer to the monitored values, underlining the importance of good emissions inventories. However, there is logic in the model that deals with events where there is discrepancies between the emissions inventories and the model, or the model output, sorry, and the monitored data. One such example is for bushfires. So bushfires in the region can result in significantly larger concentrations, particularly of particulates. And we've developed some logic around that to deal with those events, which the model can't really pick up. The model can't pick it up because it's not an emissions inventory source. Next slide, please. Sources within the model are tagged to allow for source characterization. We don't display this information publicly in the Perth configuration. However, the model can access real-time or historical source contributions at any location. The source contributions include the modeled estimation of each source, so industry traffic, is it background or is it uncategorized? So the uncategorized essentially being the model error, where the model was not able to account for the final concentrations monitored at that location. We use this data to assist in calibration and refinement of the model. All of the individual data sources and outputs for every hour are stored separately, and this allows us the option to go back and reprocess historical data and outputs if we change our methodologies within the model. Slide, please. So we recently performed an analysis to determine the performance of the model. This involved removing monitors from the data set in turn and then predicting values using share at the removed monitor location on an hour-by-hour basis. In a recent assessment, we undertook an analysis over a 4-month period. The 4-month period was chosen because there had been some upgrades to some of the methodologies. So within that 4-month period, we had approximately 470,000 data points to work with. And the results on the slide present the error between the predicted and the monitored values over that analysis period. So for PM2.5, the largest short-term errors were generally associated with bushfire events. Because as we mentioned, we haven't implemented a methodology to model those yet in Perth. I'll touch a little bit more on that at the end of the talk about potential ways to overcome this, but generally the monitors do a relatively good job of picking that up. You might not be able to see it well, but I'm not sure if Ryan, if you can zoom in a little on the picture, you might be able to see the monitors a little bit better, but that might be stretching the friendship a little bit. All right, I'll assume that we can't, but generally the monitors that performed the worst were generally isolated from other monitors, i.e. on the outskirts of the city, or monitors that were located next to localized sources such as of elevated concentrations that were not well accounted for in the emissions inventory, so such as residential wood fires in homes. You can sort of see some of the darker spots there are on that like southeast of the city there, and then up in the northeast of the city as well. Next slide, please, Ryan. For PM10, we noted a higher degree of error at the monitors compared with the PM2.5 values. Again, this is sort of generally associated with monitors that were more isolated and in areas with little emissions inventory on the peri-urban fringe of the city. Next slide. NO2 had a higher degree of variability at locations within the city compared with PM2.5 and PM10. This isn't entirely unexpected, as the NO2 monitors can have a higher degree of variability at lower concentrations due to where they have sort of a higher sensitivity to humidity and temperature. As noted in David's speech, the RAC and Clarity undertake significant effort to ensure the validity of the data from the monitors. So the monitors are co-located with Federal Reference Method NO2 monitor before they go out, and then there is ongoing calibration that occurs periodically. The RAC continually monitor the data to ensure that a monitor doesn't have a clear error, and if an error is located, it's flagged and removed from the platform, and the data is rerun until further analysis can be undertaken. Slide, please. So some of the lessons learned around methodologies. There's lots of potential methodologies and data sources that we can use within Share. We've found that what works in one location doesn't necessarily work in another, and implementations of the model need to be curated carefully and specifically for the region in which it is operating. Good emissions inventories make a big difference sometimes, both in the performance and the presentation of the data. Detailed and accurate emissions inventories also allow greater insight into what is happening further away from the monitors. Although, given we have a fairly good distribution of monitors across the city, the impacts to the performance of the to the model is somewhat mitigated. Inclusion of a more detailed emissions inventory, both in terms of the number of sources and inclusion of temporal variability, could result in performance. Probably for the Perth implementation, the areas that probably need the most work would be around vehicle compositions and wood fire heating in winter. In terms of the monitors, locations of monitors can have a big influence, both in terms of the accuracy and in terms of the presentation of the data again. Placing monitors in areas far from other monitors or in areas not supported by good emissions inventories can result in reduced performance. The RAC is limited as to where they can sometimes place the monitors, as they require permission to put them there. They've had a really good response from local governments and schools and sometimes even RAC staff members, which has allowed a significant part of Perth to be covered. And they continue to be in talks with various stakeholders to host sensors and further expand the reach of the network. Continually tracking monitor performance is also important. It's not just set and forget. It's a constant process. David can reel off multiple instances of monitors that have had animals take up residence in them, monitors that have been stolen, or something's just gone wrong. If the monitor performance isn't tracked, it can have a large impact on the performance of the model as well. And finally, the public interest has been a huge part of this as well. The general public, the interest from the general public's, there's been a lot of positive support, and there's also been a lot of interest from government and other air quality professionals and health academics. Overall, the project presents a great opportunity for public engagement on air quality issues within Perth. And it was designed to engage with and encourage conversation with the public about vehicle use in the city. And on that end, it appears to be working really well. The RAC gave a great presentation that Julian alluded to recently as part of its stakeholder series last year, where it brought out Dr. Andrew Grieve from the Breathe London project, and which has over 800 monitors installed in the Greater London area. And Dr. Grieve gave a great talk about the program and spoke about the level of engagement within the community. He spoke about how it's been a continual journey with the program running for over 9 years now, and really how in those last few years they've really gained a lot of traction within the community and a lot of community involvement. And the RAC remains committed to this project for the foreseeable future and really hopes to generate similar levels of engagement, hopefully reducing car usage and bettering the air quality in the region. And that's the end of my presentation.
Well, thank you so much, Martin, for a very detailed and technical presentation regarding the share model. So I do recognize that we are kind of approaching the end of the webinar. So I will be in kind of turbo speed to cover the remaining section and really trying to leave some space. We will going over the scheduled time. So if you can stay, that'll be great. If not, the session will be recorded and we are still trying to addressing the question you posted it on Q&A, and you can maybe check out later in the recording. So if anyone has any question now, please feel free to post it in the Q&A and we'll addressing it very soon. So as David, RAC and Martin mentions, first stage of the projects, we are really focusing on getting the network up and running, making sure the data collect is accurate, making sure the model we output is relevant to the public and is accurate as well. But in the meantime, we actually are starting to really look into the data we have collected and to see if there is some insights we can driven from all the measurements we are measuring. So a quick glance of our network. Next slides, please. We have now deployed 200 monitoring sites, out of which more than 90% are monitoring the sites next to roads, with a more than 99% kind of a network average uptimes. And then today's days, we have collected more than 60 million number of measurements already. And then out of these measurements, we have beginning to see some interesting findings. Next slide, please. Some of the preliminary findings that will be included in the network reports that's releasing soon is, first of all, around 35% of our NO2, our daily average monitoring sites, does exceed the WHO recommendations. Concentration in urban locations are 60% higher during the peak times, and most exposed sites has recorded up to 90% of the days above WHO recommendations. Next slide, please. In the meantime, we have also took a quite interest in the schools in the regions, in which we have looked into 37 private schools, and we have conducted a data analysis for 3 months, from July to October 2023. And during that 3 months, we have discovered, next slide, please, that it's estimated that school-related traffic may contribute to 15% increase in NO2 levels. And all the 37 schools has recorded at least 1 day above the WHO recommendations. And the maximum days average recorded is more than 4 times above the WHO recommendation in the most polluted sites. So we definitely see a strong impact of traffic to the air pollution level next to the schools. Next slide, please. So as David mentioned, the network report and data report will be made available. And some of the finding that we just presented is just a tip of the iceberg. Feel free to check out that on the RAC Air Health Monitor website. Next slide, please. So thanks again for everyone to join this webinar and to letting us covering these 4 crucial building blocks of the RAC Air Health Monitor network. We are so excited to take this best practice learned here and expand to the rest of the world with our partners. Next slides. If you're happening in Oceania, we have recently formed an exclusive distribution partnership with Thomson Environmental System, in which you can access our solutions through. But in the meantime, if you want to learn more about Clarity solution, feel free to go to our website or email us at hello@clarity.io, or simply using our Build Your Solution tool to configure your network, and one for our air quality experts will reach out to you and talk with you. Okay, so we will now open the rest of the webinars to the questions. And thanks so much for the patience for the people who are staying. I think this is questions probably for, I think there's a lot of questions have been asked around calibrations. How do we conduct the calibration? How are we making sure post-deployment the network is still accurate? How do we conduct QAQC? I feel this may be a great question for David, RAC. We are specifically doing that for the RAC Air Health Monitor, and maybe I can add a bit toward the end.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, David. So yeah, as you said, this is collaborative work, between your team and ours. So for the calibration, what we are doing is, it's what I mentioned in my presentation earlier. We collocate the sensors for a period of 6 weeks with our reference graded stations, which allow the Clarity team to create some calibration profiles for particulate matters and NO2. And what we noticed is, depending on when you receive the sensor, you may need to do several calibration to ensure that you will have good performances across the whole year. So basically, if you do a first calibration in summer, based on our climate, it's very likely you will need to have also another one in winter. So you have like a kind of both extreme seasons, and it will allow you to manage all seasonality. In terms of QA/QC and how we ensure that the performances remain good is we keep between 10, 20 sensors permanently collocated with our reference station with different calibration profile, and we keep tracking the performances of the sensors versus the reference graded station. And if we notice any slippage in the results and the performances, then it means that yes, you need to recalibrate your devices. But at this stage, and it's basically this process which allows us to identify that the summer's calibrated sensor were not performing well in winter. And since we did this recalibration to manage all seasons, we haven't noticed any issues at this stage. So we will still keep tracking over the years to ensure it will remain persistent. But at this stage, yeah, we are very happy with the results of the calibration we applied. I'm not sure, David, because you have been heavily involved in that process, if there's anything else you would like to add to this.
Yeah, I would say in the meantime, Clarity also offer increasingly adding QC feature into our dashboard. So we be able to, in the device status page, you will be able to see device alarm if there is certain errors being flagged internally in the sensor module. In addition to that, we are also will be introducing an auto QC flagging system to our system very soon as well later this year. So that will further increase our customers' ability to identify faulty readings and making sure that the measurements you're collecting is accurate and reliable. Yeah, so maybe the next question would be for Martin. I think there's some questions regarding like kind of how the air quality monitors can work well with the modeling, right? Is there kind of a minimum density that would result in satisfactory modeling results?
I mean, the denser the better, obviously, and I think we've done some analysis around model performance and I guess assessing the relationships between monitors, and depending on it, sort of there's a few different variables in there. Depends on the pollutant, and it also depends on the sources that are nearby. So obviously, if you're close to a road, you would want higher density there than an area that's probably less roads and less sources. A monitor can be more indicative over a larger area. But some of the analysis, I'd say, if I had like a rule of thumb, some of the analysis that we were looking at, doing variogram analysis, like for PM2.5, I would say between 1 kilometer to 3 kilometers would probably be about right. And then for the NO2 stuff, if around roads, I would make it denser, and then in more open areas, I would make it less dense. So there's no hard and fast rule around sensor density. It's more around looking at your particular situation and customizing it for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Martin. So a question this time for kind of a RAC. So I think in these cases, we are specifically talking about, community engagement. Have you examined how well the general community interpret the data from the air health monitors? And how is the local government, such as Western Australia governments, is incorporating incorporating this kind of data into some of their decision making?
Yeah, good question, David. I guess for us, when we launched the RAC Air Health Monitor, we did a large campaign promoting the availability and awareness piece of the actual monitor, which we call, the tool. Since then, we've actually been working quite hard to complete the network. So we didn't do it in reverse, but we kind of established, promoted, and continued to build. We are in the position now with a complete 200 network, where our focus for the future is starting really from now is our community education and community engagement with our members in the community. So this is really going to step up now. We do have a campaign being pushed live in the coming month or so to start to raise the awareness of the RAC Health Monitor. And then through that, we do hope to be able to hear from our members and the community on how they feel about the monitor. So we regularly engage with our members through that's what we call the voice of the member, where our members provide responses on a range of topics and also other channels. So yeah, this is definitely one that we will be further, seeking information on, especially how they previously accessed air quality data, how they currently use air quality data, and what they use it for. Second part, sorry, David, was there something else I've missed, or was that pretty much covered?
Yeah, I would say second part is mainly kind of how the local government has been engaging with
Of course.
the data. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we've recently completed the full 200 sensor rollout, and we have more than now 21 local governments on board out of approximately 30 odd in the Perth metro area. So now that we're really starting to collect the data, I suspect the local governments will start to use this, especially once we start getting annualized data. So yeah, we've attended key events in Perth where we can actually engage with the environmental health professionals and team members that are using this data. We recently attended the Environmental Health Australia World Congress, and it was great just hearing feedback from these health professionals, how they're using it from, an infrastructure point of view, with, making positive changes in certain communities, but also dealing with any, local resident queries or complaints around air quality. It now provides them with a tool to truly understand what is happening in their area, whereas, majority of local governments might not have access to that data. So yeah, positive feedback from them, and yeah, our journey is really only just beginning, which we're excited about.
Yeah, it's definitely a very exciting kind of a start of the journey. So there's another questions regarding the modules. Is asking how the modules can be integrated to the existing air quality sensor, and regarding the after sales service, what are the inclusion, what is the device, how the device is maintained. I'm happy to answer some of them. I would say the notes, as mentioned, this is the Clarity notes as I'm holding it now. So on the side of the note, there's actually a port we call the accessory port, in which the add-on module essentially can connect to the Clarity nodes with. And that's one cable. Essentially, you can imagine that as a USB Type-C cable that's provide power and the communications to the add-on module. So it's really a plug and play experience. And once you plug it in, the data will be floating, and you will be able to get the additional parameters. Either it's ozone module to measure ozone, or winds, or black carbon. It's yeah, all of them work similarly. And in terms of kind of our after sales service, I would say Clarity offers something what we call sensing as a service, in which we include the hardware, software, and our expert support. And then we actually have a dedicated project manager assigned to you and work with you from the beginning of the projects until the end. And the idea there is we are here for you to really helping you through the deployment process, calibration process, during the network live, to helping you to making sure you're getting the data you need, and they're really walking you through all the up and downs through kind of a air quality management perspective, monitoring perspective. And then in terms of the maintenance, the best part of this is there's very low maintenance involved in this network. David can probably mention, like, so far we probably have a handful of kind of a physical intervention that we actually needed to the network. And if there's any kind of a hardware need to replaced, we simply provide you one at no additional cost because it's all included as our sensing as a service. Yeah, so I think there is, let me see. Martin, this is kind of another question for you. In case the emission inventory is not open available, how to apply the model? Any thoughts around that?
It's difficult. It can be done, but it does, I guess, decrease the resolution of the model. You lose a lot of the that definition of being able to sort of see individual sources. However, you can still implement a system purely like a system that would be purely monitoring based and would look to present the data really as a function of the monitoring values. But I would suggest probably in that instance using something, if you didn't have an emissions inventory, using something like the Clarity dashboard where you just look at the monitors and look at the data individually is probably going to be more meaningful.
Thanks, Martin. Let me see. So I think there are some questions around sort of, that's kind of a question for RAC. In addition to local governments, do you see kind of yourself expanding this air monitor initiative to places such as hospital, nursing homes, and in where the populations are interested in the air pollution? So not just the governments, but also the communities as well.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, working with our local governments, there has been a criterion, I think, which I mentioned in a preso that we have with installing the sensors. As you can appreciate, managing a wide range of stakeholders is quite a challenge. So for now, we have kept it fairly tight, but it's still quite a number of different stakeholders. This is in our future planning of collaborating with the community, and who knows, even getting our members involved in one way or another might be something we can do. But yeah, absolutely, working with nursing homes, hospitals would be great, especially if those that are interested. So yeah, we are hoping to work with those because yeah, we do want to help make the I guess invisible visible, but also provide a tool where people can make informed decisions on what is actually occurring. So in their local area. So yeah, it's definitely something we'll look at. But for now, we are capped at 200 sensors with, I think our last count was around 80 different stakeholders that we're managing. So yeah.
That's already a very impressive amount of stakeholders. I think we are way past our original time, and really happy to see still 40 people are sticking around and listening to this webinar. So we just want to really appreciate you again for attending these webinars. This webinar will be made available later, and the recording will be sent to you. And then in the meantime, if you have any additional questions that we don't have enough time to answer, again, feel free to reach out to us, either RAC or Clarity, and we are happy to answer your questions. Thanks again for everyone who joined today's webinars, and have a great rest of your days.